Bob, big rally in bonds this week with the bank trouble and the expectation that the Fed's maybe closer to done with hikes than we would have thought a couple weeks ago. But if you were holding mega cap tech, for example, ahead of this week, you did very well. But what do investors do now? Do they sell that and put it somewhere else?
I think the bond move was just unbelievable. Highest volatility in bonds in years. The 10-year moving, roundly from a 4 to 3.5. Below that, 100 basis points lower in the 2-year. It's just incredible. My view is that some of what we just talked about is a little overdone. In other words, at the margin, I want to trim tech and buy a bank or two. I think the moves in both directions, more than a 20% delta between those two in 1 week, probably overdoing it a bit.
Okay, so Warren, you expect a second half recession. And for the investors who agree with you on that, what should they sell here?
Yeah, I mean, we're overall, I think that I agree with Bob. I think you need to trim up on tech. It's had a big run here, and we're just cautious on the market in general. I think that this week has been the market pricing in a Fed pivot, and what you see in one full calendar year, basically priced in 1 week. So you see the 2-year yield drop by more than 100 basis points, 10-year 50 basis points. That equates to a bull steepener of like 50 basis points. We see that in 1 year following a Fed pivot usually. And we've already priced it in. So I'm with Bob. I think a lot of this stuff gets unwound. And if the Fed is going to pivot as soon as the futures market is predicting, then, obviously equities are too rich here. And so they're the odd duck out. I want to reduce my beta and reduce my exposure here, especially close to 4,000.
Warren, just expanding this out and looking at the week that was, we just talked about it, yields down, stocks down largely, mega cap tech aside. You saw the dollar falling. You saw crude fall pretty dramatically, gold trending higher, and Bitcoin popping. What does that tell you about the macro take, at least from investors in the markets right now, on where economic growth is headed?
That is absolutely a picture-perfect pivot trade across all those assets. So you see gold typically going back 1 year following a Fed pivot, you get gold up 15%. We've basically gotten gold up 9 or 10% since the SVB lows. Bitcoin's trading like digital gold. You've seen the same thing from the bond market, the futures for Fed funds futures market. Yield curve inversion has started to unwind. I mean, to me, this is a really clear message that the market's expecting a pivot. And I just don't think that the Fed's going to deliver next week. I think that the underlying economy is still a little bit too hot. And if Fed really finds himself stuck in between a rock and a hard place here between inflation and financial stability, and I think that as long as the market stays up at these levels, the stock market that is, it gives the Fed that room to be aggressive and continue with QT despite the new facility and continue with a rate hike next week. And I don't think that's going to be received very well by the equity market.
Yeah.